So in 1987, I was an apprentice at Williamstown Theater Festival. And for those of you who have never heard of it, it's this very elite, equity, summer stock theater, and it's tucked away in the Berkshires with other such luminaries as Jacob's Pillow, the dance troupe, and Tanglewood. And it's basically where Ivy League scholars summer. But in my case, my parents had paid $1,500 so that I would have the opportunity to go there and work in a sweatshop all day building costumes and building sets. And if you were really lucky, you could be a dresser, which meant that when the equity actors would come off stage, you could sort of towel them down and say to them things like, no smoking in costume and don't you eat in costume. But one day when I was working in the shop, I got a call that they wanted me to come in and audition for one of the main stage shows. It was Night of the Iguana by Tennessee Williams, and they wanted me to come in to audition for one of the two sort of Mexican peasant cabana boys. And right, so this is a big thrill, and I go in, and no apprentice had ever auditioned for anything all summer. I was the first one to audition. I go in, and I get the part. And I think to myself, I am clearly something of a talent, and I have transcended my apprenticeship here at Williamstown, and they have accepted me as one of their own. Until I saw that the other Mexican had been cast to a guy named Jonathan Glickstein, and I realized that the best they could do for two Mexicans at Williamstown Theater Festival was two Jews. But still, this was a big thrill for me. I was just 20 years old, and I'd be on stage with two-time Tony winner James Naughton. John Malkovich was going to come in to direct. The New York Times was going to be there on opening night, and I had a costume fitting with dressers where they dressed me in this sort of tattered, flowing peasant smock that went down to my knees and an open chest, and it was a real thrill until opening night. I was really nervous on opening night, and my knees were knocking, and I was having some, my guts were churning, and it just got worse as the day went on. And when they finally called places, I got to places, and I was really feeling like some spasms, and I thought, I'm not going to make it through the first scene, let alone, the first act. And I caught a little bit of a break when the stage manager said holding 5 minutes. There was some sort of technical problem. I thought, I got to make a break for this right now. It's going to be violent but quick, and I can get back here in 5 minutes. So I run off, and I go downstairs. I sit down in the bathroom. I drop my pants. I sit down, and 2 seconds, just done. Everything's fine. But I notice that there's a problem. The first thing I notice is that I didn't hear any noise. And the second thing I notice is there's like a warmth around my thighs and general buttocks area, and I look between my knees and I see the front of my peasant shirt, but also the back of my peasant shirt. And I realize that I've just shit in my peasant shirt, and I gotta be at places in now 3 minutes. So I get to work, I gotta take this peasant shirt off. Unfortunately, it's gotta go over my head, which was not easy. The bathroom is a mess, but I figure I'll just leave that there because some apprentice will handle it. That's what they're there for. And I go to the costume shop, and the costume designer's not there, but the assistant is, Richie. And he looks up at me, and there I am. I'm not wearing my shirt, and I've got my shirt is in a ball in my hands. And he just looks at me, and he's like, "Were you smoking in costume?" "No." "Were you eating in costume?" "No." And I didn't know what to say to him, so I kind of showed it to him. And he just started waving his hands in front of his face. "Oh my God! Oh my God!" But he said, quickly went off the handle. He said, "Don't worry. I think we have something for just such an emergency. We got an extra shirt." And I'm thinking to myself, you anticipated that this was going to happen? Like the costume designer said, let's get an extra shirt just in case one of the Mexicans shits in his. But he comes back and he's got this brand new shirt for me. He's got the shirt. The problem is it's sort of pressed and it's new and it hasn't been worn. But I throw it on, I get back to places and I'm there in time. I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna get away with this. But the actual costume designer is upstairs and he looks at me and he just says, "Where is your shirt?" And I say, "Oh, there was a bit of a problem. It has a little bit of a stain in it." And he says, "You can't wear that on stage. That's a brand new shirt. A Mexican peasant wouldn't be wearing that shirt." And at this point, Richie had come upstairs. He sort of whispers in the costume designer's ear. The costume designer just glares at me and then looks at Jonathan Glickstein and says, "Jonathan, take off your shirt. Because the Mexicans both cannot, you have to take off your shirts. You're both going on with no shirt." And Jonathan said, "What? Why I have to take my shirt off? I've been rehearsing in this." I know what he's thinking, which is, I've seen his body. I know my body. They are both best consumed with shirts on, and now we got to take them off. And he says, and Jonathan, then the stage manager just comes in and says, "Places!" And Jonathan just brazenly walks on stage, and I don't know what to do. And the costume designer says, "Just take your shirt off and go, go, go." So I go out on stage, and it goes, pretty well. He's got a shirt on. I don't have a shirt on. But all I'm thinking the whole night is, tomorrow the entire festival is going to know what happened. And sure enough, the next day, everybody is buzzing about how Jonathan Glickstein would not take off his shirt when there was a costume emergency. So anyway, that's the story of how Jonathan Glickstein blew his big break.
Come on, Steve. Come on.